According to the New York Times, a Georgia man filed a negligence lawsuit this month against an Atlanta hospital that he says lost a chunk of his skull that had been removed during emergency brain surgery in 2022. The man, Fernando Cluster, 62, of Decatur, Georgia, and his wife, Melinda Cluster, filed the lawsuit in DeKalb County Court on August.
A Georgia man who underwent surgery 2 years ago for a brain bleed and had to have part of his skull temporarily removed was then charged thousands of dollars after medical staff lost the bone and had to use synthetic materials to replace it, his attorneys said.
As you come on to the page, kindly hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. And don't forget to put on the notification bell so you can be notified when I drop the next video. Thank you.
Fernando Cluster, 62, was initially admitted to Emory University Hospital Midtown in Atlanta on September 30, 2022, and underwent a decompressive hemicraniectomy, a surgery to relieve pressure on the brain, according to a lawsuit filed earlier this month. The lawsuit states that Cluster's medical procedure involved removing a 12 by 15 centimeter portion of his skull, known as a bone flap. The bone flap was scheduled to be surgically replaced during a cranioplasty the next month. However, Emory Hospital workers were unable to find Cluster's bone flap at the time of the follow-up surgery on November 11, 2022, the lawsuit says. The hospital did not immediately respond to HuffPost's request for a comment and has so far not responded to Cluster's claims in court filings. Emory Hospital staff had located the bone flap the day before Cluster's surgery, but could not find it when preparing for the operation the next day, according to Cluster's medical notes, which his attorney Chloe Dallaire shared with HuffPost. We inspected the freezer where bone flaps are stored and could not find a bone flap with Mr. Cluster's patient identification, the notes read. There were several bone flaps with incomplete or missing patient identification, but we could not be certain which if any of these belonged to Mr. Cluster. Hospital staff told Cluster they had to reschedule his cranioplasty until a synthetic implant flap could be made, according to the lawsuit. Dallaire said her client was forced to remain hospitalized due to the delay and was charged for his extended hospital stay. The surgery eventually took place on November 23, 2022, but Cluster then developed an infection from the synthetic flap and had to undergo an additional surgery, the lawsuit says. Cluster has been charged over $220,000 for medical expenses related to his visit, which include the cost of the synthetic bone flap, its removal after it became infected, and the implantation of a second synthetic flap, Dallaire told HuffPost in an email on Wednesday. It is shocking that a medical provider like Emory would lose part of one of its patients' skulls and then refuse to accept responsibility, Cluster said in a statement Dallaire provided. We now have to live with the consequences of Emory's negligence, including daily fear about another infection in my head and medical costs. According to his lawsuit, Cluster has suffered physical and emotional pain and is seeking a trial by jury. The lawsuit also names Cluster's wife as a plaintiff, saying she has been deprived of the love, society, companionship, and consortium of her husband. Dallaire told HuffPost that Cluster is recovering from the implantation of the second synthetic flap. A hospital in Georgia faces a lawsuit after a piece of a patient's skull, removed during brain surgery, was allegedly lost. The patient, Fernando Cluster, underwent a procedure at Emory University Hospital Midtown to treat a brain bleed, which involved the removal of part of his skull. The 12 by 15 centimeter bone flap was meant to be reattached in a subsequent surgery, but 2 months later, when Cluster was scheduled to have his follow-up surgery, the hospital supposedly could not locate the bone flap that had been removed. When Emory's personnel went to retrieve the bone flap, there were several bone flaps with incomplete or missing patient identification, and therefore, Emory could not be certain which if any of these belonged to Mr. Cluster, the suit reads. The situation led to a series of complications, including the need for a synthetic replacement, additional surgeries due to infection, and significant financial charges for the Cluster family. Fernando and Maria Cluster say that staff at Emory University Hospital Midtown caused them ongoing physical and emotional pain and suffering, and left them with thousands of dollars in medical bills. This case has raised questions about hospital procedures and patient safety. Despite being responsible for the loss of the original bone flap, the hospital billed the Clusters for the synthetic flap, the extended hospital stay and the additional procedure, totaling around $146,800, according to the lawsuit. The bill for the installed synthetic flap alone was more than $19,000, the Atlanta Constitution-Journal reported. It is unclear how much of the bill was covered by their insurance, if at all. The hospital did not immediately respond to HuffPost's request for a comment and has so far not responded to Cluster's claims in court filings. Hospital staff told Cluster they had to reschedule his cranioplasty until a synthetic implant flap could be made, according to the lawsuit. Dallaire said her client was forced to remain hospitalized due to the delay and was charged for his extended hospital stay. The surgery eventually took place on November 23, 2022, but Cluster then developed an infection from the synthetic flap and had to undergo an additional surgery, the lawsuit says. Cluster has been charged over $220,000 for medical expenses related to his visit, which include the cost of the synthetic bone flap, its removal after it became infected, and the implantation of a second synthetic flap, Dallaire told HuffPost in an email on Wednesday. Fernando and his wife Melinda Cluster have not asked for a specific amount in the suit, but are seeking both general and special damages. In a statement shared with NBC News, a spokesperson for Emory Healthcare said it does not comment on pending litigation but is committed to providing high-quality, compassionate care for patients and those we serve in our communities.
As you leave the page, don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. Thank you for watching.